Trying to find where he says, let me see. Okay, at the top of the left column, you have the dark print where it says Hakavanot boyer. So as a Hakavanot boyer b'harichos b'mabu, I guess in his introduction, Seder his pashtus achasadim v'chagavuras the shitas of RASHASH, according to the RASHASH, of P. Bir Maharav Abraham Mishan Baal Sefas Emes. Okay, so we're going to right now we're going to read this Sefas Emes. Like I said, I think that the other part was still a little bit vague. The first part, where it started, it was talking about the 3 lines and combinations in the 3 lines. It could be that it wasn't really clear to me that he wanted to say each line has 3 lines in it. That's possible. That's what he wanted to say. But I'm holding that idea out. This is a little bit vague exactly what he's talking about. All of it. Now let's talk about this. And he does some translation for us for the RASHASH. Okay, so that's Chagat Nehim. Because sefira la'atzmo, he partzuf Shalom, every sefira by itself is a partzuf. Now this is the way that the RASHASH looks at things. So kolul mishlosha prakim, and each one of them has 3 prakim. Now he's looking at it here in Orech. Prakim ha'elyonim they call sefira nekroim Chabad, v'prakim emseim nekroim Chagat, v'prakim ha'tachtona nekroim Nai. We don't have a problem with that. That's our standard Rav. V'chachsadim v'gavuras b'spashtim rak b'pirkim emseim. Now the true thing is that the chasadim and the gavuros, they go only into the area from the Chagat Lamata. So that's because this is Das. Das is located, let's say, at the Chagat, the extension of Das. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking he means. Mispashtim rak bepirkim emseim v'atachtoin dechabeshechel sefiras Chagat Nehim. So it goes into the lower element. That's the Chagat Nehim. V'seder his pashtas the chasadim kan hu to call chesed the gevur mispashet besfira achas. So each one of them has a designated location that it's going to. B'sheves sefiras Chagat Nehim dezer anpin. So each one of the chasadim gevuros, and he explained, at least he did a little bit about how it is that there's actually 5 chasadim and how they actually become rooted. I guess we got that idea as 7. Because there's also the potential for Yisod and Malchus as part of the spread. So that's the same idea for the Chasadim and the Gevuros, but these go into the Nuk. So this is where the translation starts. So he says that in the Siddur, Nikwayim kan ha-sfiras b'shem zacherim. He has different names for the spheros. I'm assuming that because there's more depth to what he wants to get into, he wants to really get it down lower or deeper. And so therefore, he says, going back again, Shabbasidr Nikwayim kan ha-sfiras b'shem zacherim, the spheres of Chesed is now going to be called Chachan da Chagat. So why would you call it Chachan da Chagat, which just means the right side of Chagat? V'chatam defisha she'im nechshav as sfiras Chagat partzuf atzmo. So this is the thing that you really needed to have learned. We need to have learned this way back when. Would straighten out a lot. He says that the sfiras Chagat, let's read again. He said, V'chatam defisha she'im nechshav as sfiras Chagat partzuf atzmo. So look at the Chagat as if it's a partzuf. So that partzuf means it has 3 lines. Lemshus sfiras chesed he kav yamim is going to be the right line, which is also, what is the right line? It's also called Chacham. So he said, because you're only dealing with Chagat Nehim. That's all you're dealing with here. So in this case, we're only dealing with Chagat. So he said, sfiras chesed he kav yamim, which is called Chacham. Shel zeh ha-partzuf. V'sfiras ha-gevura nikros baga de Chagat. It's going to be the Chagat. So Chagat is a partzuf. That's what he's trying to say. So chadifisha sfiras ha-gevura he tzad small shel partzuf ha-Chagat, because that's the left line, which is the line of baga, which has been called the bechinas of baga. Derek zeh nikras sfiras tiferes dati de chagat. So therefore, it's called the dati de chagat. It's the middle line, but it's part of the partzuf of chagat. Spirits are nets of Chachan the Nai. So let's go down one notch from the Chagat. We go to the Nai. So the spheres Netzach. So specifically, we're looking at the Netzach is called the Chachan the Nai. So it's the right line of the partzuf called Nai. Then he says Sfiras Hod is going to be the Baga the Nai. The Sfiras Yisod is going to be the Dati the Nai. The Seder is Pashtusam, and as they spread, who Beseder the Lolon is going to be, as we're going to learn later on. So he says, well, how's it go? He says, Achesed Arishon is Pasha Besfiras Achesed Nikra Chacham Dahagat. Now let's go then again, because now we start to show us how he uses it. The first Chesed, which is the Chesed that we learn in other places, a Yom Shekulo, or it's the Yomam, that kind of thing, which holds all the other chesadim. That's the statement that Rabbi Memran used to say, that they have the same address, different partzufim. Again, Seder his pashtus, who beseder l'holon hachesed arishon is pasha besfiras hachesed nikwas chacham dahagat. B'shnei pirkim, and where does it go? It goes into its two different sections, which are Chagat and Nai. Shalom, I think that's what he meant. Perak Emsoy, he says it. Chagat, Perak Tachton is the Nai. So it spreads into there. That's the first chesed. It goes all the way through them. Chesed Hasheni is Pasha B'Sfiras HaGevurah HaNikras Baga the Chagat, because again we're dealing with the parts of the Chagat. B'Shnei Pirkim Shalom, again Perak Emsoy, which is the Chagat. The Perak Tachton is the Nai. So okay, so going on. So he says, Achesed Ashlishim is Pasha B'Sfiras and Sefiras. It goes down the middle line, and Nikras Dati de Chagat. So that's the three lines of the partzuf called Chagat are going to be the let me just get this exactly right. It's going to be. Okay, let's just keep going on. I'm losing the train. B'shnei pirkim shalad into its pirkim, which is the pirkim soy, which is the chagat, and the perik atachton, which is the nai. Hachesed the revim is pasha b'sfiras netzach. So what do we call the nitzrach chachan the nai? Because nai now he says that chagat is a partzuf. First of all, he said that every sphere is a partzuf, and he said that the chagat, looking inside of that more, you could look at the chagat is as a partzuf by itself. Now you're coming to the Nai. The Nai is going to be a partzuf. B'shnei pirkim shelo b'perik emsoy, which is the Chagat the Nai, and b'perik tachton, which is the Nai the Nai. Hachesed ha'chamishim is pasha b'sfiras hahod. It goes down the left line, and nikras baga the Nai. And b'shnei pirkim shelo, perik emsoy is going to be the Chagat, and perik tachton is the Nai. So it goes through each one. It's very nice of the Sefas Emes to do that. Chesed Hashishim is Pasha B'Sfiras Yisod. So the sixth Chesed grows down into the Yisod. Hanikras Dante Denai. B'Shnei Pirkim Shalom. Perikim Soy, which is the Chagat, who Perik Tachton, which is the Nai, into those two places of that Nai. So there's the Chagat the Nai and the Nai the Nai. Chesed Hashvi. So the seventh chesed, Mispasha B'Sfiras HaMalchus, spreads into the sefira called Malchus. B'Shnei Pirkim Shalo, in its two different sections, which are Perikim Soy, which is the Chagat, the Perik Atachton, which is the Nai, Valdevik Zeh, who say that his Pashtus of Gevurus B'Sfiras Anok. So this is the same idea. It has to do with the spread of the Sfiros into the Nok. So where did I stop? The Atachton into the Nok. So it says, Nimsa the Fizah, the Bekol HaMshacha Mamshichim Chesed Echad the Sefira Acha Shlema, Bekol Eses Sfirosov Sorosecho Hapratius. Below Rock, Lukav Echad Belvad, it just doesn't go into one line, it goes into every Sefira. V'shemes hakavim hachan or baga or dati. So the names of the lines, which are those, right? HaOmerim kan, which we're talking about here. Heim shemes ha-sfiras atzman, they're the name of the sfiros themselves. Commotion is boyer, as we explained, v'im kain, v'im ki yesh bezecha mahalkim mecherim mefarshim. So if there, in fact, are other ways that we could add this up and the different mefarshim, v'rava'ana nektaindoch of the farish kan kederek Sefas Emes, but he's holding, this is the tiv, he's holding that. So we already brought previously, shekol b'chidach and emshechas l'tachton, any aspect which is going to pour down into, going to stream down, what's my right word, flow down into the lower element. So in other words, it's coming from the same place in the partzuf of above it. Hilkach, so therefore you kind of think of it like an ovi, where they're really very related, but they're coming from different partzufim. Hilkach b'ba'anocha b'kan lahamshech as a chasada v'chagavurus miyisod de'ima. So if we're coming to this place where we're going to pour down these chasadim v'chagavurus miyisod de'ima from the yisod de'ima, the sefiras chagad nehim dezun, going to go to there. Now I don't know how Zun got into this, but I guess he just means in general that's where it's going. So that's what he wants to say. So if you're going to go into the Chagad Nehim of Zeranpin, it's going to have to come from the same place in Ima. So he said, Nehim the Yisod, the Yisod the Ima, Nachloch Lusara Bechinos is divided into 10 different aspects. The Sefiras Chagat Nehim, those ones, the Yisod, the Ima, Anu Korim Gam Kain Kashemus of the Ale, it's going to also be called, like he said before, he says what? The Chachan, what was his language? He says the Chachan the Nai, the Chachan the Chagat, or the Baga the Chagat, and the Baga the Nai, like those, the same names. So in other words, they are the same, except that they're in different partzufim. And I like to think about it like, I'm trying to think about it like in Ovi. Ovi, I think, really could also be seen, although we have drawings where they're side by side, which works, but they also could be like one on top of the other. That's really what I think. Is that in the inside part is really the template for everything that's going to be on top of it. And they're all exactly the same, except they're further away from the source. So he said the Chula de Iba Rabana Korim Gam came Kashemus of the Lael, she also called Ima that way. So she used it, in other words, we use the same names for Ima. Her addresses are all going to go to the same addresses in Zeranpin, in Zun. The Haidach Shechesed, the Yisod, the Ima Nikra Chachan the Hagad, it's called the same thing. He says it's the Chesed that's in the Yisod of Ima is going to be called by the same name. It's going to be the right line of the Chagat. The Gevura Baga. So in other words, she has also a Chabad, which we're not talking about. We're talking about the Chagat Nai. The Chagat V'chein Kulam Al Derek Zeh, and then all of them in the same way. Now I really wasn't prepared to go much deeper into this, but since I started, I could look at some things that I'm trying to do when I'm looking at trying to learn the Rashash. In Sharabi, he tells us that this is what my mentality, what I'm trying to do. He says that the most highest level of relationship to Hashem is the Pashut. So here on page Shin Yud Gimel, let's look at page Shin Yud Gimel. He owes us the Pashut. And then he shows you what happens to a covering. Let's say, we're going to learn this, but the covering of it, and he shows it that the covering, that this Pashut, which is the real juice, let's say is the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, it has a lavush, which is a revuah of Ekya. Now, for a long time, I'm looking at this better. I'm able to concentrate a little bit better than I used to be able to do. And so that I'm looking at it, and you see it starts off, what we wanted to do, we want to assert this Ekya inside of Zeranpin. It's like the idea that it's coming from Ima, and it's covered in this lavush, this revuah, and so it's both one way or another, it's going into Zeranpin. So as I looked at it more, though, I said it starts like this on number Yud Ches. If you could see it on page Shin Yud Gimel. He says Yud Ches. It starts out Yud K, and then you want to make the insert. But and then he starts with the first letter Vav, and he starts the insert. So I thought that's all it is, but actually there's more into it, because there's a Yud K Vav K in the insert that's not part of the Levush that we had up above in number 2. We had number 1 going into number 2, number 2 going into number 3, but when it went into number 3, it also picked up a Havaya in it. And then it comes out like this, and then we see Yud K Vav, and on the bottom number 4, and there you see the Havaya that's in it like that. So let's look over. I said that we have just a little bit more time, so might as well get started. And well, let's read it. Let's read it, and then we'll go to the Pirush. So that's like I try to say is I just try to analyze the letters, because I think it's probably the higher level, just to be able to look at it and to see what it's doing. So let's see what it says. Chesed is on the right side. Might as well look at this too. Let me bring it down here. He says, first it wants to talk about the Chesed that coming in. Then it wants to talk about, on the left side, it's going to talk about the Gevura. Then it's going to go into Tiferes, I think. And then if we switch over to page Shin Tas Vav, you see that it goes into Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and ultimately Malchus on page Shin Tes Zayin. Okay, it's the same formation. So basically, you're taking whatever these letters represent, the power that they represent, and you're putting them into the Milui of Ma, which is their Anpen. So he writes, before we get to the Pirush, which is on the RASHASH, let's look at what he says here in just under Chesed. Let's try to see the words that he uses. He says, Chesed Rishon v'Levusho, Mechachan Chagat Denai v'Chagat Dema Dema. Now, I don't know what Ma Dema means. I really don't know why he says the Ma Dema, but he does, because Chagat, so he says the Nai and Chagat is the Ma maybe. So, but let's read again one more time. Chesed Rishon v'Levusho Mechachan Chagat. I think he's talking about from Ima, her Nai v'Chagat Dema Dema. The Acharayim, the Yisod, the Ima. So he says that which is the Acharayim of the Yisod of Ima. So that's the transfer point, the point from which it's being sent down. Lahavliya, to swallow it up, bavov, inside of this Ma. I'm still back there what he meant to say, because he does this in the second line where he calls it the Ma Dema. I'm not sure what the significance of that double language is. So he says at number Yud Zayin, he said L'chavliyo b'vav dema, the Hachan the Chagat, which would be the first Chesed. That would be the first Chesed. The partzufim Nai v'Chagat, in the partzufim both of the Nai and the Chagat, the Ma the Acharayim the Zun. Again, the Ma the Acharayim the Zun. And then he shows it to us. So that would be the next piece. So then moving over to the other side, has to have something very similar for the Gevura. So he says the number Kuf Aleph, he says Lahamsha Chesed Sheni v'Levusho. So we're taking the second Chesed, which is called Gevura. Where's it going to come from? It's going to come from the Balga the Haggad, the Nai v'Chagat, the Ben the Ma, of the left side of Ma. Now we have the left side of Ma. The Acharayim the Yisod Ima. That's coming once again. It's going to be the Acharayim, which are going to be the Revua of Ima. So let's look at this one more time. He switched the language, where before he called it the Ma, which I guess we had got the idea that's the right side of the right side. Why? Because you're dealing with Chesed. These are Chesadim that we're dealing with here. Hamisha Chesadim. So he says, the left side of the right side is going to be called the Ben Dema. The acharayim, the yisod, the ima, all of this is coming out of the backside of ima, which is the place of the transfer, or what's the right word? Interface. L'chavliya b'vav dema. Once again, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to have it swallowed up in the vav dema, the baga, the chagat, the partzufi nai v'chagat. So it's going to go on the left line of the parts of kol chagat, of the partzuf, of the partzufi, both partzufi of the nai v'chagat. I'm a little bit not sure that I understand why he puts nai and chagat in here, because he wants to say it goes all 7 places. So he said, and this is going to be once again the ben dema, the acharayim, the zun. So we're dealing with the right side because we're dealing with this. Let me just see.
Gotta go.
Okay, oh, that's it. We're out of time. Okay, we ran out of time there. It's a little bit interesting, and we're going to see how it's going to go further.